my thinking is, I wanted to present it to you all for non-action this evening, and then I will send it out to the staff. Got a district leadership team meeting next Tuesday, and I hope to have feedback from the staff to you all by the February 3rd meeting, and then I would ask for action at that time. I'll be happy to entertain any words, suggestions, directives on how to proceed with the academic calendar process. It's 148 days, and maintaining the 4-day week are the big priorities. And I think we can do that in all three of those. Obviously, each of the three have different variables.
I like to give the variety. I think that that's important. C on the agenda is the SRO officer agreement, and that is an action item.
Okay, so that, I put the contract or the agreement in your packets in talking with the city officials. My recommendation would be that the board approve the agreement as presented, with the understanding that the district, if resources allow, in May or June, could go back to the city and revise the agreement with respect to the SRO situation. Other than that, I don't know that I'm in a position right now to recommend, given our current, I'm just not comfortable recommending adding or changing, increasing, and anything that we would do from an SRO perspective, from my vantage point, would be to add options, not decrease. And so from that perspective, I'm not comfortable right now stating we're good with contributing a certain amount of money at this time until I can see how things play out through the spring. So that's why I wanted to make sure that the board understood that moving forward, and the city has a different timeline, which is why we have it now with respect to the fiscal calendar. But I would recommend that the agreement is accepted with the clause that the district reserves the right to amend in May or June if resources allow. Questions, thoughts as it pertains to that?
I'll make a motion, we accept that agreement for the SRO. With that clause in there, we may want to change it to June 24th.
Second.
Motion by Brian, second by Michael, to approve the SRO agreement as presented. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Utility easement is D.
Yeah, so this has been working at this with the city, specifically Ms. Howlett, and individuals from Liberty on coming up with an appropriate or acceptable area for the city to, I shouldn't say the city, Liberty to connect electrical connection from the new rec center to the new, or to the electrical connection, which is on the, I guess it'd be on the west side of the high school in that vicinity. The information is in your packet with respect to the diagram. It all links up with the easement language, and then it all links up with the work order information that's on the diagram. But this will be an underground utility connection, and so I think this is something that is going to be great. I think it's something that's needed to get the rec center going, and I don't think it's in any situation where it's going to cause any negative reaction to the school in any way, shape, or form. So I would recommend that the board approves this particular easement to move forward.
I'll make a motion to accept the utility easement as presented.
Second.
Tied. Motion by Michael, second by Jeremy, to approve the utility easement as presented. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That motion carries. Next motion E is the walking trail easement, which was changed to an informational item, no action needed tonight. Item.
This has been a process that worked through, and I don't think the board would object to hearing from somebody from the city. I don't know if any representative from the city is prepared to speak to this.
Next,
Mayor?
when we have a decision, I'll be more prepared and have some handouts for you guys, so not a lot of information, happy to answer any questions, but, you know, we'll have more of a presentation if you're up for a couple minutes of the
Sure,
time on that.
sure.
Is
I
that
think,
okay?
would you be prepared to answer a few questions now? Okay. When is the absolute last that this decision needs to be made for the city to progress with the grant?
Tough question, because I think at this point, we're already facing some pretty tough deadlines, and we're gonna be asking for an extension. So hopefully it's later, but we still need to get going. Even with the extension, we're gonna be kind of against the clock a bit, but, you know, probably, if we could have an answer when we come to you on the 3rd, it'd be very helpful.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do any members have any questions they would like to ask the city with respect to this proposal?
Yeah, I mean, I have a few questions.
Yeah.
One of the questions I have, of course, is, it's probably obvious that we're concerned about our constituents that are most vulnerable, which is our students and our faculty, which, you know, we represent. So,
Of course.
I am, at least, can't speak for the entire board, but for myself, I have a few questions about safety.
Yeah.
And the fact that it is along the lines of our playground, which has very young students playing in. I have reservations about it, and I want to know like what alternatives there are to that, to not be that close to our students that are very vulnerable.
Yeah, gotcha. Certainly can address that, and if you guys are open to it, I can share some facts that we have via email before the meeting, so you're prepared, not trying to read a whole handout on the 3rd, but, we definitely have some information that would address safety. Really goes to, a lot of it to design and the way you design the trail to not have hidden nooks and crannies and open sidelines and things of that nature, but, there's some statistical information as far as trails and safety, and, I don't wanna read off much numbers to you, I'd rather just give you the sources so you can read through it for yourself and not just take my word for it. But I appreciate you giving me a heads up on what your concerns are, because that will help me address them.
Of course, that's our number one concern.
Of course.
We wouldn't be on the board if we weren't obviously concerned about safety and security of our children.
Yeah.
So the other, I guess, you don't know my history, so I'm just gonna say I have a security history. I was in the prison system for a long time, 25 years, so I've dealt with a lot of people in security. My concern is complacency, and I think that concerns me, because right now, anybody can walk up to the fence, but I do know that people walk up to the fence, it's reported by the teachers seeing that, and my concern is if people are allowed to walk around, that no longer becomes a red flag for them. They are no longer seeing that, and I know that as a security officer. So complacency is detrimental, and when you're not paying attention to what's going on in the big picture out there anymore, you're missing things.
Yeah.
So, and we can't miss, not once
Understood.
in this situation, not one time.
And just so you know, we take security serious as well, and safety in our parks and anything that we do, and so this is just not, a couple hundred feet that we gotta focus on. We're concerned with the whole thing, but of course, given what's there, it is a focus. Mr. Singer and Dr. Yoakum provided some really good feedback at one of our meetings, and I think we've addressed some of that as much as we can.
I'm just giving you my concerns so you can think about it before then, and I'm
we-
sure that these gentlemen also have some concerns. I don't wanna take up the whole floor. So.
Yeah.
Anybody else got a couple concerns or things they wanna discuss?
I got a question, I guess, and this may have been asked at some point, so I apologize if it's a do-over here, but this is the only option as far as routing goes because of the stormwater? I'm
Yes,
familiar
sir.
a little bit with that
Yep,
stormwater
so-
drain and everything there.
Yeah.
They couldn't route it down like over towards Washington and then back around, or
Negative.
something like that?
Yeah,
So-
so what it boils down to is, this was submitted as part of a grant,
Right,
that section. And, again, I wasn't prepared to speak, but I will, so, maybe coming a little bit with hat in hand here as we had some informal conversations in the past with, we think, that shouldn't be a problem, we can work something out. And we didn't make those formal conversations, right? And so we probably should have had this meeting maybe some time ago, but at the same time, we didn't have details. So I don't know what I was gonna come to you with. So kind of stuck a little bit, but probably should have engaged you all as opposed to maybe just Dr. Ritas at one point. Casual conversation, not making an official conversation. We submitted the grant. Also a little, maybe on me, not realizing that that really cemented us into what we submitted as a grant is what we gotta do, or we don't get it. And so we're up against a $500,000 grant for this. So we entertained, after the meeting we had, and Board Member Singer and Dr. Yoakum shared some concern, went back, talked with MoDOT about going in front around to the rec center, because like, hey, that's not a bad, idea, right? Connect the rec center, and they're just like, absolutely not, you won't get the grant. So, we're kind of in a rock and hard spot of either doing that or not at all. We did adjust from what we presented to you guys originally there's an alley to the north. We were originally trying to keep that easement, but we went ahead and moved all the way over into that alley. So we're asking for a minimal amount, as least as little as ground as possible to provide that distance, as well as not using the parking lot as a trailhead. So, we do have an empty lot to the northeast, the old bridge house. Some of you guys may know that name. So we're gonna use that as a trailhead, so we're not gonna impact your parking, right? So there won't be people parking at your property that you don't know who they are or whatever, right? And so, our plan was to address security taught by design. I mean, it's really the key is providing those good sight lines, not making sure that there's hidden corners, and everything that I've read is trails increase safety because there's people walking by, there's people walking through, whereas now, someone could be hiding in that brush or in that ditch and no one would see them unless a teacher spotted them, right? So there's places to hide now. So in my mind, I do feel like it makes it safer. I wouldn't come to you and ask for anything that would make the children unsafe. I've got kids in the school system as well. So it's top of mind for me also. So but I'll have some more information for you.
Thank you.
But that's
Is, with MoDOT, I would think that if it was a concern about the safety, that they would be a little bit more lenient to think about funding and not take it away because of something like that.
Yeah, I think they see these type of trails a lot, and I think they would probably disagree with it being a safety issue, possibly as well. I mean, but I don't know. And they really just don't care. Either you can do what you're going to do in the grant, or you can't. It's kind of their stance, because there's other communities that wanted money and begging for money. And so that's kind of their stance on it, from what I understand. If you want to add something to that.
I would just add from the standpoint of that we did ask, and the thing about it is that MoDOT is not in charge of the grant. They're the ones that put it out, but the bottom line is that everything goes to the Federal Highway Administration. And so, and we have submitted timelines and everything else of when mileposts have to be met along, and we're behind that, and as Mayor Lewis said, we're behind that right now, and we can ask for an extension. They prefer us to work through this, because it was very, very clear is that any other options to move the grant, move the proposed route or anything else like that was an absolute no. In fact, when we talked about that, they even said, well, if the school is interested in applying for a grant, the same grant that we got for this, the school can apply for to extend the sidewalk in front of Robinson School if they wanted to, which would be a great plan to take it to the south, maybe directly to the high school. So from that standpoint, they kind of said if the school wants to do it, they have that option, they can do that. But the Federal Highway Administration, they look at it from the standpoint of that the community needs to work together to work out any issues and that sort of thing. Along with that is just kind of I think we have to keep in mind is that if this was a problem, because I from the town that I lived in before, I could show you probably 10 or 12 that go right by schools in the city of Lincoln, Nebraska. And that's just one town, and these are across the nation. Thousands, millions of dollars are going out to thousands of communities that are doing these type of things. If trail safety was a problem, I feel pretty confident that the federal government would be not involved in giving money away to communities across the nation to implement trails and construct and develop trails in communities and stuff. And I think also from the as we just continue to go down, if it was a problem, MoDOT, the state, would not be doing that. And if it was a problem, then cities like us wouldn't be applying for that. I'm not saying that there's not anecdotal, incidents where that has happened, certainly. But at the same time, I think that if this was a widespread problem, there would be some warnings and there would be some reluctance to give that money away. One other thing is that I will point out is that quite honestly, and that we're already, some of the issues that you've discussed are already occurring on your own properties. The White Trail Park, White Park Trail that goes up under the underpass and comes out right in Pate School parking lot.
But
It
it's
doesn't
in
go
the,
past
it's in the front where the kids aren't really there.
It doesn't go past the playground.
You don't go by the playground.
But we also have alleyways that go by Kelly Field, and we see kids out there all the time. And Lewis Shaw Drive is in back there. We see the public traveling through there all the time. And so, in those kind of spots, and you talked about the parking lot, you didn't want people parking in your parking lots. That's already occurring. People are already using those areas for trailheads. So, and I think, right now, we don't have any, in the 7 years that I've been here, I've never seen any problem or heard of any problem being this type of thing happening, some of the issues that you've expressed happening. Kelly Field is open to the public.
Not during the
Not during
day.
school day.
We shut it down.
Right, you're exactly right, because the signs are there. But I have witnessed, and as well as other people have witnessed, people walking out there at alternate times of the day. I've seen older folks, community members, walking through there on school days around there. So I appreciate that the sign is there. And I
Those
understand.
individuals get permission from me or from the central office to do that. And if I'm not saying people don't do it outside of, what they're supposed to do, but I've had several people that are retired contact me directly and inquire about getting there.
Right.
That would be a completely different, to address the whole scale safety thing. And I appreciate what you're saying, Mr. Holmes, and certainly what you're saying, Mayor. I think this is a difficult situation because the urgency of time is with this. I mean, you guys have a significant urgency of time, a lot of money.
Yeah.
Conversely, and I'm not a board member, and to some extent I speak for the board given my role, the board feels the same type of urgency, but different, from a different perspective. I'm sick about the whole time situation, because I don't want the city to lose out on money. However, I don't want people to have concerns about safety, whether the statistics support it or not. I mean, people are still gonna have those concerns. So there's gotta be some way we can work together, to your point, or maybe you said it, Mr. Holmes, to work together to come to a reasonable conclusion that meets everybody's, to some extent, not everybody's needs, but meets the consensus,
Yeah.
if you will. I am a little bit worried about the fact that we can't move it, which I understand what MoDOT's saying. I've heard all those things before. That's not surprising to me. That does give me some pause, but as I listen to the board and what their feelings are, it does give me some pause that we can't move the trail, so to speak, from A to B. I understand that. I just hope, my hope is for my role that you guys, you as the city, understand the school's concern is sincere. And it's not, I think I can speak honestly to the board. We're not trying to, or the board's not trying to stop a stop something just to stop it.
Yeah.
It's a sincere concern. You know, the district ran a bond issue in I wasn't here, 2019, something about increasing security and safety. And the last thing that any board member or any school official would want is somebody to come back and say, well, you ran this bond issue, but now you've done this. So we want to be able to be prepared to answer those questions in a logical way.
I can certainly sympathize with you guys, and I get angry calls from citizens, but they're not about their children, right? So, you get it tougher than me for sure, you know, and I'm not going to.
It's my 10 years on the board, and I want the city to have progress. There's no beef there, but we tried to close Lewis Shaw to help more on safety, and we know that you only have certain things, you gotta have access in roads.
Sure.
But those were there before I was on the board. This is the hardest decision I've ever had to make, because, I mean, if we hire a superintendent or somebody that we don't like, a principal, we have them a year. This trail's there the rest of the time, and with the school shootings that go on, if anything that happens, not saying that things happen anywhere, but if I make that decision and something happens there, it's a burden on, that I feel, and I woke up multiple times in the night stressed about this, but hiring a superintendent or other things, it doesn't bother me. I just hate to be the one that makes a decision of something that it happens to somebody, or a teacher, or a kid, or anything. And so I want you to understand that I want progress. It makes me sick about this decision, because every time you open up an opportunity, like Chantel says, it's complacency. And if teachers see something out there, that somebody standing out there, it's like a red flag. But you get people coming and going, you kind of lose that, what's going on. And you know, you don't really see shootings in parks, you see them at schools, and I know it happens everywhere, but that's where my burden is with me.
One
So,
thing that
you
I
understand.
would say is that I think it's important to remember that the safety, security, and welfare of students is not proprietary, is that the city shares that just as much as you do. And that should be evidence in the fact that, I mean, the SRO program is a shared cost. You pay about 50%, we pay about 50%. And we view you as partners, not competitors, but partners in ensuring that the safety, security, and welfare of all citizens, regardless of age. And we partner with you in that to take care of the people and visitors and everybody that's in that. So don't think that we're discounting anything. We just want to make sure that because I think we've been looking at different options. Mr. Singer, you have said something about, you know, what about a barrier on the fence? We've been pricing barriers and what we can do there. That is a floodplain, so we're very limited on as far as fencing. But we've looked at other things as far as fabric barriers that could go up that enclose and hide, making sure that there's not anybody that can view into that, because that was talked about visually looking in. So we've been looking at barriers as far as that type and other things. So I think, you know, we on our side are very, very cognizant of the fact of the responsibility that you have and that your concerns always. But we've also been looking at what can we do that is, you know, to be flexible and to still get this accomplished over the finish line, and making sure that we're addressing the concerns that you have.
How many lineal feet do you have of fencing that runs along that edge?
I don't know. I just took a kind of a guess when I was pricing like a fabric barrier about 8 foot high and about 300 feet long. I think that's somewhere in the neighborhood, but I haven't been out there and measured it. And that was about $2,000 to put that up, and it had a lifespan of about 3 to 5 years or so that it you know. And so I look at that, I was like, all right, if that was put up and we put that there, you know, a couple of grand every twice a decade, that's not bad. And looking at, you know, no loitering signs and lights and making sure, Dr. Yokelman's said something about signage, making sure to keep people moving and no loitering in that area and that sort of thing. All of that is absolutely reasonable. We are certainly able to do whatever is reasonable, but there's some things that we may not be able to because we are looking at, again, this is in a floodway. What can we do as far as permanent structure that is in a floodway, and so we're limited in that. And I even thought about, well, if there's concern up that, I guess it would be the south fence going up, is that if we need to cover that so that it is more shielded from prying eyes or something like that, if there's some concerns about that, would we be able to go up that way and that sort of thing. So, like I said, we know that you guys have a lot to consider.
Yeah, and I mean, we would definitely like to have more information about that before we would, on our next meeting.
All of those things would have to be agreed upon. I mean, there is, part of this is the uniform relocation purchase act that we have to follow. All of this discussion, we're gonna have to get minutes from you guys so that we can provide that to the federal government so that they know every document, every discussion that we have has to be documented, that we write when we talk to you guys about this and the emails that Dr. Yokin and I've exchanged back and forth discussing this topic. We have to present all of that because the federal government wants to know that you were not coerced, that you were dealt with fairly and that sort of thing through all of this. And that is absolutely our goal here.
Right.
What's the limitation, when you're saying, like, so we have a chain link fence up there now, is there, and when you're looking at barriers, what are they saying where can you go with this and where's the, limit of different types of barriers? Because of the floodplain, even something that's just permanent, so you don't have to, $2,000 or $3,000 every so many years, is there any type of structure that's not necessarily a wood fence, you want something more of a poly type of something that lasts, but is there anything out there that they allow?
We were also looking at those slats that go down that through the chain link fence that you can put those in, and that still there's a little bit of a gap, but it largely covers everything, and we were looking at that. They might still get broke, but if we're purchasing a whole bunch and stuff, and they got all sorts of different colors, but if we did something like that, those would last a while. They would still degrade, with UV rays with the plastic and stuff, but over a number of years, but then it would just be replacing different ones. So we've been looking at a lot of different options, and like I said, we've talked about, all right, what about a fencing? What could we do with that? And Carrie would have more to say about that, what some of the restrictions would be, but we've been, between Carrie, myself, and the mayor, we've been discussing all options to try to accommodate what you guys want.
I think the good thing is there, Dave, am I wrong, but for all those years you were there 8 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
We never had a flood rip out that fence, did we? Which that's good, that upper stream isn't blowing out fence so whatever we put there seems like it might stay. So
We were even talking about trees and, okay, what does that mean and how long is that gonna take to grow? And, all right, the only thing that would really create a barrier of about 8 foot would be like spruce trees, but how long is that? But then not gonna take, but that just turns around and provides cover if somebody is in
Yeah.
that, so that's not necessarily a great idea either. We just, I gotta tell you, I appreciate the fact that we can have a conversation about this with the entire board, and we're looking forward to that, to providing you and all of that, and just what the city has planned.
This started out as I was in a community, I traveled a lot for work, and I was in a community that one of the parents at the bank I was at, they had dropped their kid off at a park for school. And I was like, what are you talking about? And they mentioned a walking school bus. And she said, oh, well, when the weather's nice, the school, once a week, whatever it is, they got some teachers that hang out at the park in the morning, and the parents drive by, they drop their kids off at this park, and they walk, they use the trail. And they said, we got a trail that connects all of our schools and our parks. And it's a walking school bus. And I was like, that's an awesome idea, you know? And, so I don't know, as soon as we've been talking about, and, you know, that wasn't the reason, but it was like, man, that's awesome, you know? Why don't we have trails that connect, start connecting all of our things, and, you know, that's kind of where some of this started, and, you know, there's other opportunities, I think, for the school to utilize it as well, but,
Part of our hope is that if we can get this done, is that, as I said before, is that we plan on really putting the pedal to the metal and seeing about applying for another TAP grant that is going to be opening up sometime next year, so that we can finish it from our trailhead right there at St. Louis and Lincoln Street, and take it all the way through, continue to follow that, and get it into White Park. And part of that is that we're planning on, we need to replace the bridge there on South Street, right across from the Little League. We need to replace that bridge, as well as the other bridge that's right there on Harrison Street, and get those. So that is part of our match too, for some of these things, providing that, as well as helping the infrastructure in the community, but also providing the walking trail. At that point, all of the schools would essentially be linked. We would want to, and I know Teresa's talked about this, is to get it up to the junior high and stuff. When I was talking to my wife about this, she said, my kids used to leave Robinson School for summer school and walk, you know, to the streets, walk the streets to get up to the swimming pool for summer school and stuff. This would eliminate that risk and that sort of thing. And like I said, if you guys wanted to apply for a grant, I would certainly be willing to help you with writing that, since we've been successful, and to say, all right, now that we're working on the recreation center, to get that up to the high school, with the high school. I've heard that a lot about kids leaving Robinson and going up to the high school. So, but all of that is great, but I agree with you that it comes back to a core foundational issue of making sure to ensure the safety, security, and welfare of students and citizens.
Because there's not one of us that on the board, I'm assuming, that don't want walking trails.
Sure.
I mean, we all
Absolutely.
do. It's not about that. I mean, we want a walking trail, we want the facility to flourish. That's not what it's about.
Sure.
What it's about is we have to make the right decision for our students, and that's what it's about.
And this money is not, like, this specifically for the trail, it's not tied up with anything else, like if you don't get it, something with the rec center or something like that, it's specifically for that.
It's $448,000. That is, and so right at about $500,000 that we're getting from the Federal Highway Administration. And then we have a 20% match on that.
Okay, I just wanna make sure that it wasn't tied up, you know, you need to, for the rec center or something, cause I know sometimes they get tied together, so.
Now, this is all standalone.
Okay.
Well, and to Mayor Lewis's point on, you know, communication, we can't go back and change that. The meeting we had down at the fire and police station was a great first step in forward progress between all of our boards, and we all want the best for Aurora.
Yeah.
And so, you know, this is certainly no offense to Dr. Gilcom or, you know, John Holmes, but employees, just like you mentioned, Dr. Regis, employees are temporary.
Yep.
The boards are the citizens and the stakeholders. And so the more we can engage that communication,
Yeah.
I think a bit of our, you know, no one's against anything. We just have lots of questions that we want answered. And so, you know, we're sitting here, we've had the information for a few days on something that we are going to make a permanent decision on an easement.
Yeah.
And yes, safety is a concern, but it's also district property that we're the stewards for. And so, when we've only had that packet for a few days, and I can appreciate the timeliness of the grant, but I don't think from previous administration to now, we were fully apprised
Sure.
and ready to make that decision.
And I can appreciate that, and I certainly would never hold anybody to that, because I wouldn't want anyone saying, well, the last council member said, you know, so what? You know, it's a new group, or new someone, you know, you can't hold on to the old, it is what it is in the moment, right? And so, totally respect that, and that's why I kind of started the way I did with, you know, hey, you know, some of this is on me here, just coming to you with my hat in my hand, and, you know, maybe should have had a conversation a lot sooner, but, you know, I guess I'd just be, and with, try and be open to that a trail could actually increase security, you know, by having good community members, out and using that, and that's extra eyes. It could also, eliminate risks that you have now with kids walking down the street home, you know, and I don't mean that to, I'm not trying to guilt anybody or anything, but, you know, a kid could get hit by a car, right? Or on a bike, whereas a trail they're safe. And so I think, you know, in some respects I get that provides a walkway for a bad actor to come behind the school. You're also providing a safe passageway for kids daily, and getting them off. And that's really what the grant's for, is alternate transportation. So it's to get people off the streets, mainly bikes and walking, you know, and so.
So how is it gonna, I mean, it does need to come to the front of the building though, because that's how they come in.
Yeah.
The kids need to come they come in through the front of the building. So if they're riding and walking, like,
I'm just
back
saying,
of
if I
the
lived
building's
over, if
not,
I was a
they're
kid and I
gonna have
lived
to
over by,
come.
you know, Dollar General in that area, I could ride my bike on that trail around, cause it's gonna come up around to that parking lot to the side of school, right? So, you know, that's getting them off
I'm
of
just saying.
Hadley, off of,
Right.
was that Washington, whatever that other road
I just
is.
wish we could put it in the front of the building.
I do
It just
too.
makes more sense.
Hey, I honestly do too, you know, I mean, I
Makes more
like
sense.
Singer's idea when he brought that up, that it, you know, connects to the rec center.
I just wish we'd also known a little longer. This is what
Yeah, I do too, yeah.
I'm not gonna rehash everything, but I was on the park board when we first started the trail stuff, because the goal was to connect all the parks and all the schools. That is the goal. And we had a letter of support from Dan Decker, superintendent at that time. It did not go through the school board because it wasn't on his property. It touched the property, from the second phase of the trail, from White Park through the Hule Horse land over to Pate. And I could see how that would not go before the board because it didn't involve your property. But since that time too, we applied for another grant and we followed more of what everybody wants, basically sidewalks, putting, you know, traveling down like Lincoln Street or whatever. But when these grants are rated, they are negative marks when you go along streets because the grants don't want to build our sidewalks because they want alternative routes. So I think that's how part of this developed. And, you know, we're learning moving forward, as you say, communication. And I feel really strong and positive that you guys have a great board, we do too. And I see working together that we're gonna make good things happen. So, anyway, I will say though, I think that if we have a lot of hiccups with this grant, it might be some black marks that if we, or red marks, whatever, on future opportunities applying for a grant, so.
Defaulting on this one, I've talked to too many people, too many other communities, and MoDOT won't come right out and say it. But they'll say, you know, if you ask them, could this hurt us in the future? They'll say, no, it doesn't matter at all that you did this. But at the same time, it is written kind of between the lines is that it could damage our ability to get grants, because it really comes down to is that they were not able to get their ducks in a row to make this happen. And so, but like, I hesitate to even say that because I don't want it to seem, I don't want to put you guys in a bad spot. It is, but as I said, you know, we're willing to do what we can and to get this across the finish line.
Is there anything besides the visual barriers that would be a positive in your guys' eyes, that, you know, that there's only so many changes that we can make. We try to address them as much as what's already been brought to our attention, but outside of the visual barrier, is there anything that, you know, makes common sense to you that, we've been throwing stuff against the wall, but
I mean, I think the visual barrier, and I also think the idea of, I don't think we object so much to, you know, common use of a parking lot as much as we object, or the concern back to, for the most part, if we have employees, we recognize their vehicles. And so I think having the parking lot off
100%.
is a plus.
Good, okay.
And we'll have more of that to show you in maps to say, this is where, because St. Louis Street, where the bridge house, what we call the bridge house is, and now it's gone. But where it used to be right across St. Louis, we own all of that area. We own all of those parcels now, as it flows across that area. And we plan to put a trailhead to that spot, and we plan on putting parking areas and picnic benches and maybe facilities there, bathroom facilities and stuff like that as well, and stuff. So we were very responsive to your concerns about not being on your property.
Well, I don't think it's just that, it's like, I was over there a couple times during school just to look at the site. And I think there's only maybe 3 or 4 parking spots on that north side even available. It's pretty full during the day. I mean, it's not after that, but it makes it pretty hard to get in and out of there. If you got a lot of people trying to get in, you know, there's just not very much parking.
You get probably shorthanded.
I guess, I mean, if it's okay that I get up and show you what you sent us, I assume it's because of the ditch and the water that this can't be pulled back and routed more toward that corner?
Yeah,
Is that
yeah.
because of crossing, you'd be crossing the ditch twice? Is that?
Anything, if we had to go across the ditch and be a bridge, that would create quite a bit more as far as, because that's considered a waters of the US. So building a bridge or anything else like that, that could create an obstruction would be pretty difficult. That would take quite a bit of time and engineering to get done. These type of things is exactly what they love to see, is that having a floodway or a floodplain, turn that into a green space to turn previously unusable land into something that has a public benefit for the community.
I appreciate your guys' input and we'll look for more from you, and we can appreciate your guys' position, and hopefully you can appreciate also ours.
Thank you for the time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is MSBA policy update, and it's a no action needed.
It's just a slew of policies from Missouri School Board Association. They include but aren't limited to drug-free workplace, GBEBA. I won't read them all, but a lot of it is to respond to the new, I guess, allowances or responses to medical marijuana, and then also some of the how we process alcohol and drug testing for not only employees but the random processes for students. And then so the first 8 or 9 cover that arena, and then the last 2, KK policy KK, and then administrative procedure KKAP, cover or address visitors to district property and events, and those also include a provision about medical marijuana. And essentially, and you can read through the entire document, which is significant, basically states that no matter the circumstance, no employee is to be under the influence. There is to be no illegal use or illicit use of marijuana on school property and things of that nature. So, but at this point, it's all in there. We can discuss it more in February. This one, given the mass, it may take a 3rd reading, so it may not be something the board wants to act upon until March, which is certainly the board's purview, but it is provided to us from the policy firm. Any questions as it sits right now on the initial presentation of update 23D?
I do like the matrix thing, that made it a little bit easier
To
to
follow
follow.
and track.
Yeah, that made it a little easier to track. Any questions?
What, I mean, has MSBA or anyone given any update on, you know, with this being, I don't know if legal's the right word, but legal in some respects, has it increased issues with schools, with employees?
Oh, they've not given
No,
any
okay.
statistics that I'm aware of.
Next item is Sodexo, supply chain assistance distribution, and that's an action item.
Okay, the district has received in total, $69,501.51 over the past 2 years. I think the first payment, well, let me back up. This was in response to, some of the pandemic, federal government responses, and Sodexo, which is our current provider of food service, they have a burden in this as well, in the supply chain assistance. And so in July, you all approved $20,000 to be paid back to Sodexo for the supply chain assistance. They have, and I put it in the packet, submitted an invoice for an additional $25,000 of the $69,000 to which again they share the burden. I support paying this to them. However, I do think this is it, and I've told that to the representative from Sodexo. But they have a burden with respect to the supply chain assistance in not only time, but in food purchasing. And another thing to consider if you're on the fence with respect to Sodexo and that type of situation, they've had the district entered into a contract with them in 2019, and the entire food service game has changed in the last 4 or 5 years. Having said that, their contract hasn't, so they have, and I'm not feeling sorry for Sodexo, Jason, but I do want you all to be aware that they have operated under a loss. This $20,000 or $25,000 is not gonna make up that, but I want you to consider that in the grand scheme of things. But this will be it in terms of SCA going back to them, but I would recommend that we provide that the district approves those funds to go to them to total $45,000. Of the $69,000 would go to Sodexo. Questions on that topic?
I'll make a motion. We approve the supply chain assistance distribution to Sodexo.
Second.
Motion by Brian, second by Steve to approve the Sodexo funds, distribution funds. All in favor? Aye. Motion carries. We're up to reports. So, AEA's first, anything to report?
Nothing to report.
Speaking of Sodexo, thank you for dinner, by the way, and anything to report?
Nothing to add, thank you.
Ms. Choate?
Just a quick update from mine. I had submitted a report that we were supposed to have a family academic night tonight. And we had, a junior high basketball game scheduled at the gym, which also was moved back to the junior high, so we could have had it anyway, but we are gonna reschedule that so we don't have too many people in the building at once, and it's a little quieter in the cafeteria, so.
Thank you. Mr. Nate?
Yeah, just highlighting some fun that we had right before break, and we did a kindness challenge. It was really fun to watch the kids and the teachers get involved in doing class acts of kindness for one another and community members, and even some military bases sending letters out to them and stuff. So it was a huge success and challenged the kids to do it, and the teachers, and really enjoyed watching them work. So it was good.
Dr. Springer?
Yes, our JAG, we had a couple of things with our JAG this past month. First, we hosted a competition, a JAG competition. We had a lot of success with a couple of first place and a couple of third place finishers. And then those same JAG students got to travel to Jefferson City and tour the governor's mansion and meet the first lady. Representative Boggs was there as well. So his representative emailed me and said that our students represented our community and our school very well. So that was something to be proud of. So.
Thank you. Dr. Shively?
Well, I have something to add, hot off the presses at, 7:07 PM tonight. Our FCCLA went to compete in star events today, and Mrs. Holt emailed me. She doesn't have official results yet, but the preliminary results say that 4 of our 6 groups will be going to state, and the other 2 came super close. So I'm very proud of our kiddos and all that they're accomplishing. I've been watching them in their projects and how hard they've been working on them, so their hard work's paid off. So pretty amazing. So.
Mr. Hoffman, I didn't see him.
No, he's not here, he's in supervision.
Dr. Lake is not here, so Mr. Mays, anything?
I included in my board packet the quick note that I put, but with the recent events that we've had that have been tragic in nature, I just gotta give a shout out to our transportation department, because the wheels on the bus have continued to run. And, you know, with the recent weather that we've had, with all the things that have stacked up against us, you know, the quote that I got from George Schmidt was, the bus barn's gonna take care of itself, we're gonna make things happen, and they really have. So shout out to that group of folks that have done a nice job and will continue to do so.
Dr. Yohan?
Couple things real quickly. First thing, since I have a bit of an opportunity to speak on something Mr. Grossenbacher said, yeah, and you know, the temporary nature of positions is a consideration, but I will say for everybody to hear that any recommendation from the small or the large that I make from this chair is looking at the best interest of the entire community at all facets. That's, you know, from where I live to my children, I mean, the whole gamut. So that's something I feel passionately about, and wanted to make that known for everybody here. On that note, Mr. Mason, right, you know, with what he said about the bus barn, I know Dr. Lakeman was gonna mention the alternative school has responded extremely positively in terms of dealing with things that tragedy has brought with respect to absences and student response. The district has done a very good job in responding in a very, very difficult situation. And I know I can speak for the district and appreciate the board's support. And I know through this difficult situation, your all support has been outstanding, not only for the family, but for everybody that's involved. You've heard a lot of information over the past few weeks from me on Get the Lead Out. I can tell you that it is all of the outlets that are over the barrier are terminated. They are not in use. Right now, we are in the process of trying to come up with a mitigation plan. It does look like any of the water fountains that are above that barrier or that threshold, they can be addressed, at least I'm hoping, with filters. And so I think we're in the process. We've got our maintenance staff working to get options. We have to present that, I think, by March 1st to Department of Health and Senior Services on how we will respond to the outlets that we intend to continue to use. There are a lot of outlets that were tested above the 5 parts per billion that we will no longer use. So I think that's a consideration. And then other of those outlets that aren't used for drinking or food prep, you know, you can put a sign, you don't necessarily have to terminate them, but you can put a permanent sign that says do not drink, even though they're not used for like showers and things of that nature. So we are doing what we need to do as far as that's concerned with the quote, get the lead out, end quote, policy. A couple other things I want to bring to your attention. The high school water leak situation, which apparently has been a thorn in people's sides for many, many years. I talk about it with people that have been here for a long time, and they say things like good luck, or you'll never figure it out, or it's going to be and that may all be the truth, but I'm not smart enough not to try. We are in the process of trying to ascertain where it's coming from, whether it's a roof generated situation, or it's coming from the internal, under the ceiling or under the roof, above the ceiling tile, the insulation, whether there's connections there that are bad. I just, for the life of me, cannot understand why we have so many areas in the high school that have leaks. And I think there's a way to figure it out. It's just gonna take some time. It's gonna take time where we may get up on the roof with a hose and just dump it. I know once it thaws over the next few days, We're gonna try to get up there and look at it and see exactly if we can source where it's coming from. But, it's definitely something that I think we can fix. I just don't think it's gonna be something that's gonna be fixed immediately. Obviously, it's been almost 20 years. I think it started leaking right after it was constructed. But I am in the process of trying to address it. It's just gonna take time and it may be in phases. I mentioned in a few reports that we've got our first district leadership team meeting on Tuesday. That is a group of teachers, represented the entire school district. That's like somewhat a first time thing for our school. I think that's gonna be a great opportunity to try to unify all of our campuses and talk about some big plans or big overarching ideals, and get the teachers' feedback, and then have them take information back to their respective teams, whether it be grade level or content area, and try to move the needle a little bit as it pertains to school improvement. So, excited about that opportunity. And then as a reminder, the board, I delivered the board candidates. Ms. Coatney provided me with the documents to take to the Berry and Lawrence County courthouses. I delivered those last week, so we are all set to have a general election with Jason Ernst, Don Brodman, and the incumbent, Jeremy Grossenbacher, to be up for the 2 seats that are open. I've got a lot more to say, but I'll stop there. Any questions?
As far as the board, I do appreciate all the people coming tonight. I do wanna say we've had, many have spoke about, we did have a tragic event in our school. I know the family really they're really appreciative of the support that we're giving them, that the community has shown them. I know they're still really hurting, and I do expect that they're gonna need a lot of more support. So if you will continue to support them and pray for them, and I know that they're gonna do that in the coming months and years probably. So, but I was, it's easy to say you're proud to be a hound dog. I went to the visitation and the support was apparent. There was people, and more people, and more people, and more people, and I'm proud to be a hound dog. So, I appreciate you guys. So, we do have a few things that we need to talk about in closed session.
You know, you would say one thing, for the board, since we have the chief of police here, when we talk about communication and safety, I appreciate the communication, the updates to the Facebook page. I think that goes a long way in the community for, not just the citizens to see that the police force is proactive, but also maybe those folks that are planning to do something, see that you're proactive. And so, the safety and the communication of those things is important to us, and so, thank you for that.
My pleasure. What I applied to do.
I did forget that we did have lots and lots of thank you letters from our teachers and faculty and such, for the Christmas gifts that the board received, and also, since we haven't met since Christmas, we've got lots of Christmas cards, and I won't read them all to you, but thank you for those. So we do, I'll take a motion to be adjourned out of open session. And we do need to go back into closed session, so I'll make a motion to go into closed session pursuant to 610.021 to talk about items.
Second.
Jeremy. Michael. Brian. Steve.